As I watched the screen, my hands trembled. The steamy footage from the security cameras didn't lie. In the dark corner of the club, there was my wife, and she wasn't alone. Obtaining this footage came at a high price, and the cost of the truth turned out to be far greater than I had ever imagined. That cursed Christmas party marked the beginning of the end. I knew something was going to happen. My intuition had been screaming at me. I watched Linda meticulously pick out her dress, standing in front of the mirror for what felt like hours, carefully applying her makeup and testing new perfume as if she were preparing for more than just a casual party with colleagues. I sensed it then, but I didn't want to believe it. Linda worked as an account manager at a financial company, and just before Christmas, her company rented out a nightclub for their annual holiday party. It seemed innocent enough, a chance for the team to unwind before the holiday break. I had no reason to suspect anything. We had a solid marriage, or so I thought. Sure, I didn't know many of the people she worked with, but that never seemed like a big deal. Linda always kept her professional life separate. That night, I stayed home with our daughter, as usual. We put up the Christmas tree, played some board games, and later, after I tucked her in the bed, I settled down with a book. Everything seemed normal until it got late, and Linda still hadn't come home. Around midnight, I called her to check in. The music blasting in the background was so loud that I could barely hear her. She said the party was still going, and she'd be home later. Her tone was casual, but something about the way she spoke didn't sit right with me. There was hesitation at distance. When she finally walked through the door the next evening, everything about her was off. Her hair was a mess. She reeked of alcohol, and she looked exhausted as if she hadn't slept in days. I asked her where she had been, and all she could muster was some vague excuse about drinking too much and crashing at a colleague's place. No details, no plausible explanation, just a quick apology followed by an awkward silence. My gut was screaming, but I didn't want to push. I wanted to believe her, to trust that this was just a bad night that got out of hand. When Linda quickly changed her clothes and went straight to the shower, something gnawed at me. As she tossed her outfit into the laundry basket, I felt a strange pull and urge to check. I didn't know why. Maybe it was my gut screaming louder now. After she shut the bathroom door, I walked over and inspected the clothes she had discarded. Her dress, a luxurious black number, was there along with her bra. But one thing was missing, her panties. I searched carefully, sifting through the clothes. Nothing. My heart started racing. It was such a small thing, but it felt like a huge red flag waving in my face. Why would she come home with no panties? Something was definitely off. When Linda came out of the bathroom, her hair wrapped in a towel and looking as calm as ever, I decided to probe a little. "So, how was the parties?" I asked, keeping my tone casual, though my mind was swirling. She barely glanced at me as she responded. "It was fine. You know how these things are. A lot of drinking, silly games, some contests. Just got carried away with it all. In the morning, Sandra and I went to her place to sleep it off. She lives closer to the club." Her voice was too smooth, too rehearsed. Something about the way she said it, so evasive, made me feel even more uneasy. My instincts were right. She wasn't telling me everything, but I didn't press her. If I confronted her now, she'd just shut down, and I wouldn't get anywhere. No, I needed a different approach. The name of the nightclub lingered in my mind from our brief conversation. That was it. I would go there myself and see what I could find out. The next day, I secretly took a day off from. Being a real estate agent gave me some flexibility, so it wasn't too hard to slip away without Linda noticing. I drove down to the club, my thoughts racing with scenarios of what might have really happened that night. When I arrived, I parked and approached the building. Inside, I introduced myself as a real estate specialist. I quickly made up a story about being interested in the property for a potential buyer. It wasn't the smoothest lie, but it worked. The administrator gave me a polite, somewhat confused tour of the place. That's when I noticed something. There were cameras, security cameras, positioned all around the interior. My heart raced. If those cameras had been running the night of the party, then there might be footage. Footage that could confirm my suspicions. But how was I going to get my hands on it? After the tour, I thanked the administrator, who still seemed unsure of what I was actually after, and walked back to the parking lot. My mind was stuck on one thought. How do I get that footage? As I stood there, lost in thought, I bumped into someone hard. Watch where you're going. The man barked, clearly irritated. I was about to apologize when I froze. I knew that voice. Looking up, I realized I had run into Tommy, a guy I hadn't seen since college. "Tommy, it's me, Josh. Remember?" I called out, trying to mask my shock with enthusiasm. Tommy blinked, his annoyed expression softening into surprise. "Josh? Damn, man, it's been what? Or years? How you been?" We exchanged a few pleasantries, but my mind was racing. Tommy worked here. That was a break I hadn't expected. "You working at this club?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, I'm one of the managers here. Not exactly what I saw myself doing after college, but it pays the bills." Tommy shrugged. "This could be my in. Hey, you want to grab a coffee?" "There's a place just across the street," I suggested, trying to hide the urgency in my voice. He checked his watch. "I've got a break in half an hour. Meet you over there." "Perfect." I nodded, forcing a smile. I walked over to the cafe, my pulse racing. This could be it, the chance to get the footage. I just had to play it right. As I sat down with my coffee, waiting for Tommy, I couldn't help but feel the weight of what I was about to uncover pressing down on me. When Tommy finally walked into the cafe, he looked worn down, like the years since college had taken their toll. We exchanged some small talk, catching up on where life had taken us. It turned out Tommy wasn't doing so great. After his mom got sick, he had to take on a lot of medical bills, which pretty much drained his savings. He had bounced around a few jobs before landing here at the club, but as he explained, his role wasn't exactly glamorous. "Yeah, I'm a manager, but not like the big kind," he admitted with a tired laugh. "I handle the staff that takes care of cleaning and technical maintenance, making sure the place stays in order." "Not exactly the career I thought I'd have," he said, hearing that made me feel even worse for him. Tommy had been a talented guy back in the day, full of potential. Now he was stuck managing a crew that handled the club's dirty work, with no real room to grow. He was doing what he had to do to get by, but it wasn't where he belonged. "Man, you were always the smart one in college," I said, trying to remind him of his potential. "I figured you'd be running your own business or something by now." Tommy gave a bitter laugh. "Yeah, well, life has a funny way of putting you in a box. Right now, I'm just trying to keep my head above water." I nodded, understanding, but my mind wasn't really on small talk. I had something bigger I needed from him, and time was ticking. After listening to his story for a while, I decided it was time to get to the point. "Listen, Tommy, I didn't just come here to catch up. I need your help with something," I said, lowering my voice. "It's about that night, the Christmas party. Linda was there, my wife, and I have reason to believe she wasn't exactly honest about what happened." Tommy raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" I think she might have cheated on me," I admitted, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach just saying it out loud. "I need to see the footage from that night. The security cameras. I need to know for sure." Tommy immediately tensed up. I don't know about that. First off, it wasn't even my shift, and second, stealing the footage? That's serious. If I get caught, I'm done. I can't afford to lose this job." I could see the conflict in his eyes. Tommy was a good guy, and I knew what I was asking was huge, but I was desperate. I couldn't let this go, not without knowing the truth. "Tommy, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. You know me, I'm not the kind of guy who does this kind of thing. But this is my marriage, man. I just need to see what happened. If I'm wrong, fine. But if I'm right, I can't live like this." Doubting her every move, Tommy leaned back, looking uncomfortable. "Josh, I get it, but you're asking me to risk everything. You know how strict they are about this stuff. I could lose my job." I wasn't sure what to say next, but then an idea came to me. "What if I make it worth your while?" He frowned, clearly confused. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my wallet and slowly laid dollar in cash on the table. Tommy's eyes widened, and he looked from the cash to me, hesitating. "Look, I'm not asking you to do it for free. I know it's risky. This is just for your trouble. And if you can get me that footage, I'll give you another $1, I said quietly, leaning forward. "And I'm not just talking about money. I know people. You are better than this place, Tommy. You don't need to be stuck here managing the cleaning crew. I've got connections in real estate, tech, and finance. I can help you find something better. You don't have to be stuck in this rut." Tommy rubbed his face, clearly conflicted. I could see the gears turning in his head. The money would help him, and the thought of a better job probably felt like a lifeline. But I could also see the fear. He didn't want to get caught, didn't want to risk his only income. Josh, man, I don't know. I really don't know. If I get caught, he sighed deeply. I can't afford to lose my job. I've got my mom depending on me. I get it, I do. I said, keeping my voice steady. But I swear I'll make sure you don't get caught. And I'll help you get out of this dead-end situation. This could be a new start for you. For a long moment, Tommy sat there, staring at the cash, torn between loyalty to his job and the potential of a way out. Finally, he nodded, but reluctantly. All right, I'll do it, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But Josh, if anything goes wrong, I'm walking away, you understand? Tommy said, his voice barely steady. Of course, I replied, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. I promise nothing will go wrong. When this is done, I'll help you find something better. You have my word. We finished our coffee, and Tommy told me he'd need a few days to figure out how to access the footage without raising suspicion. We exchanged numbers, and I promised to transfer the rest of the cash when he had the recordings in hand. As we parted ways outside the cafe, I watched him walk back toward the club, feeling a mixture of guilt and hope. I knew I was asking a lot of him, but I also knew this was the only way to get the truth. Now, all I could do was wait for Tommy to come through. Without waiting idly for Tommy, I decided to move ahead and help him with his job search. I felt bad that we had lost touch after college, especially knowing what a tough spot he was in. It wasn't just about getting that footage anymore. It was about helping a good guy find his way out of a dead-end job. I made a few calls to people I knew in different industries, reaching out to those I trusted. To my relief, there were some solid leads. I knew I could help Tommy start fresh. A few days passed, and life continued as usual. Linda acted like nothing was wrong, calm and collected. She went about her days smiling, laughing, and showing no signs that she suspected anything. I followed her lead, keeping my suspicions locked inside, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing beneath the surface. Then one afternoon, a message from Tommy came through on my phone. He wanted to meet. He had something for me. We agreed on a different cafe this time, one a little further out where we wouldn't be noticed. When I got there, Tommy was already seated, looking anxious but excited. As I sat down, he leaned in, lowering his voice as if we were sharing some kind of secret. Here, he said, sliding a small flash drive across the table. Everything's on there. I downloaded the recordings from the entire night of the party. I took the drive, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. What did you find? I asked, my heart beating a little faster. Well, it's not perfect, Tommy said. Fidgeting slightly, there are some spots in the club where the cameras don't have full coverage, places people could slip into if they wanted to stay out of sight. But I got everything that was on the cameras. His nervousness was obvious. I don't think anyone's noticed yet, but I'm worried if they do, it could get traced back to me. I understood his concern. This wasn't just a small favor, it was a big risk for him. I pulled out the rest of the cash I owed him, but he hesitated, not reaching for it. I really don't want to take this, Josh, he said softly. I'm only doing this because, well, you know my situation. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. Tommy, you earned this, I insisted, pushing the money toward him. Take it, and listen, you don't have to be scared. Quit that place. I made a few calls and lined up some meetings for you. You've got options now. You don't need to keep working at that club. His eyes lit up, the worry in them fading just a little. You really did that? He asked. Yeah, I've got some people ready to talk to you about good positions. It's a fresh start. Tommy finally took the money, sliding it into his jacket pocket. Thanks, Josh. I don't know what to say. Just do what you need to do, I said, patting him on the shoulder. You've got a future ahead of you. Don't let this place drag you down. We parted ways after agreeing to keep in touch, and I headed home, the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. Despite my curiosity, I held off on watching the footage right away. I needed time to prepare myself for whatever I might see. The next day, I waited for Linda to leave the house. She had a few errands to run, giving me the perfect window to finally face the truth. Once she was gone, I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, the flash drive in my hand. My palms were sweating as I inserted it into the USB port. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, my heart racing. Then I took a deep breath and clicked play. The footage began, showing the party in full swing. The music was loud, the lights were flashing, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. People danced, laughed, and drank. I could see Linda, looking stunning in that dress, chatting with her colleagues, smiling, and joining in on the fun. Everything seemed normal at first. As I watched, the party started to take a turn that made my stomach churn. What began as harmless dancing and drinking quickly escalated into something far more indecent. I couldn't believe my eyes. The people Linda worked with, profesionals, mind you, were behaving like they were reenacting a wild scene from The Wolf of Wall Street. While they weren't doing anything illegal, the atmosphere was heading straight into depravity. The alcohol had stripped away all their inhibitions, and soon the corporate party turned into something else entirely. The contest started getting dirty, with people laughing and shouting as if they'd forgotten they were supposed to be coworkers. The camera caught glimpses of women taking shots off each other's bodies, and men heading each other on to do things I won't even repeat. Then, through the crowd, I saw Linda, my Linda. She wasn't just dancing anymore. She was completely letting loose, swaying wildly with a drink in one hand, hugging men and women alike as if there were no boundaries, no line she wasn't willing to cross. My pulse quickened as I leaned closer to the screen. I watched her laugh and throw her arms around some guy I didn't recognize, pulling him in close. They started moving toward the back of the club, where the camera's coverage wasn't as clear. But before they reached that blind spot, I saw enough to know that things were spiraling out of control. Linda was kissing him, not just a peck on the cheek, but full-on kissing him like they were alone and not surrounded by a room full of people. His hands were all over her, shamelessly grabbing her in ways that made my skin crawl. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just some innocent party flotation. This was depraved. Then, to my horror, another man joined them. I saw Linda laugh and hug him too, high arms wrapping around his neck, as if this was all some kind of game to her. The three of them were tangled together in a mess of limbs and alcohol-fueled recklessness. Before they even made it to the dark corner, she started doing something I couldn't believe. I won't describe it. I can't. But it was clear she had crossed every line imaginable. And then they were gone, disappearing into the shadowy area where the cameras couldn't reach. My heart pounded in my chest, each second feeling like an eternity as I stared at the empty frame, knowing exactly what was happening in that dark corner. I didn't need to see it to know. When they finally reappeared on camera, it was even worse than I could have imagined. Linda stumbled back into view, her dress disheveled, her hair a mess. She was adjusting her clothes, trying to smooth out the wrinkles as if that could erase what had just happened. The two men who had been with her were doing the same, straightening their shirts, one of them grinning like he had just won some sick prize. And then I saw it, red lace panties sticking out of his pocket. Her panties. That was it. The confirmation I didn't want but could no longer deny. They had done it, all three of them. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Linda hadn't just betrayed me. She had humiliated me in the worst possible way. I felt sick. My hands shook as I paused the footage, staring at the frozen image of her adjusting her dress, completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. Rage bubbled up inside me, burning hotter with every second. I wanted to destroy them all, Linda, her colleagues, everyone involved in this disgusting betrayal. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved, the woman I had shared my life with, had turned into someone I didn't even recognize. At that moment, sitting in front of my laptop and staring at the damning footage, I could barely contain myself. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding in my chest. Every fiber of my being screamed for revenge. I wanted to confront Linda, to find those men and make them pay for what they had done. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It would only make things messy. I took a deep breath and tried to think clearly. Maybe there was no need for revenge. Maybe the best move was to stay calm, focus on the bigger picture, and start preparing for the inevitable divorce. If Linda wanted to betray me like that, then she didn't deserve any part of my life. I could take everything away from her legally. The next day, I found a good lawyer, someone who specialized in high-conflict divorces. I explained the entire situation to him, what I had seen on the video, the details of Linda's betrayal, and how I needed to handle the footage in a way that wouldn't put Tommy at risk. The lawyer listened carefully, nodding as I spoke. He assured me that we could use the video strategically without revealing how I got it. He also promised that once the documents were ready, we could move forward with the divorce, making sure Linda wouldn't have a leg to stand on. A week later, I got an unexpected call from Tommy. "Hey Josh," he said, excitement in his voice. "Just wanted to thank you, man. That recommendation you gave me, it worked. I got a new job. Better pay, better hours. I quit that nightclub for good. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Tommy, that's amazing. I'm really happy for you. You deserve it. Seriously. I couldn't have done it without you," he added, sounding genuinely relieved. "I owe you one." I smiled. At least something good had come from all of this. But just as things were starting to move in the right direction with the divorce preparations, something unexpected happened. One day, while Linda was out of the house, I noticed her purse lying on the counter. I don't know what made me look, but something pulled me toward it. As I glanced inside, I saw a folded piece of paper. My curiosity got the better of me, and I pulled it out. It was a doctor's report, test results. I quickly scanned the page, and my heart stopped. Linda had tested positive for a sexually transmitted disease. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was enough to make my blood boil. She had caught it from her disgusting affair, and she had hidden it from me. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was negligence, recklessness. I snapped a photo of the report with my phone and carefully put the paper back where I found it. As I stood there, my mind raced with anger. I couldn't just sit back anymore. This wasn't going to be some quiet, clean divorce. I needed to act tougher, more decisively. That night, after Linda went to bed, I made my move. I took her phone and quietly went through her work chats. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for, pictures from the party with the men I had seen in the footage. She was too careless to delete them. I noted down their names and started searching for more information. At first, all I could think about was driving over there and beating them to a pulp. But then an even better idea came to mind. I decided to go after them in a way that would hit harder than any punch. I tracked down the wives of the men Linda had been with. I contacted them cautiously at first and arranged meetings. When we met, I explained everything that had happened at the party, the infidelity, the possible consequences, and the fact that their husbands might have exposed them to an STD. I showed them the screenshots and photos to back up my story. The reaction was exactly what I expected. Shock, fury, disbelief. These women were livid, just like I had been. I suggested they contact my lawyer, offering to help them take legal action against their husbands, or, at the very least, prepare themselves for the fallout. This was my little revenge, a way to hit those men where it hurt by destroying their marriages just as they had helped destroy mine. With that in motion, it was finally time to confront Linda. I waited for her to come home from work one evening. I sat calmly at the kitchen table, the divorce papers neatly stacked in front of me. When she walked in, I handed her the documents without a word. "What's this?" she asked, already sensing something was wrong. "I know everything, Linda," I said coldly. "The nightclub, the men. I know what you did." Her face went pale, and her hands started to tremble as she fumbled with the papers. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. "You're being paranoid. This is crazy, Josh. You're making things up." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I saw everything. I've got the video. "Linda, I watched the entire night from the party. You're a little fun with those men." Her eyes widened, and she started to protest, but I cut her off. "And I know about your doctor's visit," I added, pulling up the photo of the test results on my phone. I showed her the screen. "You've been hiding this from me, and now I'm done." Linda's defenses crumbled. She tried to explain, saying it was a mistake, that she didn't know what she was doing because she was drunk, that it didn't mean anything, but I wasn't buying it. I'd seen too much and heard too many excuses. I slid the divorce papers across the table. "You're going to sign these, and you're going to be a good girl about it. Or else I'll make sure everyone, your family, your friends, knows exactly what kind of person you are. I'll show them the footage to test everything." Linda's face twisted with rage, but she knew she had no power here. She was trapped and couldn't do anything about it. You bastard," she spat, her voice shaking. I just stood up, feeling calmer than I had in weeks. "Sign the papers, Linda," I said, walking out of the kitchen. "This is over." And with that, I left her standing there, furious and defeated, knowing that her lies had finally caught up to her. A few hours later, I handed her the divorce papers. Linda realized just how deep in trouble she was. She came to me, her eyes red from crying, her voice trembling as she begged me to reconsider. "Josh, please," she whispered. "We can fix this. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right. Please don't throw it all away." But I was firm. "Linda, it's over. I don't want to hear any more of your speeches. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." She cried and pleaded, but nothing she said could undo the betrayal or erase the images burned into my mind. I told her again that she needed to face the reality of what she had done. And empty apologies. It was time for her to pay for her actions. When the divorce proceedings began, my lawyer handled everything with precision. He made sure the video evidence was used discreetly, and I didn't have to worry about it affecting Tommy. After all, Tommy had already moved on to a better job, and the club was long in the past. As for Linda, she didn't stand a chance in court. The evidence was stacked against her, and the case went smoothly. But there was one complication. One of the men from the party, a guy named Dave, wasn't taking things so well. Apparently, the fallout from his involvement with Linda had hit him hard. One evening, after the legal proceedings had already begun, Dave showed up near my house. I didn't see him at first, but he was waiting for me, desperate and angry. He confronted me, accusing me of ruining his life. I could see the rage in his eyes, but I just shook my head. "You ruined your own life, Dave," I said, starting to walk away. That's when he tried to take a swing at me. Maybe he thought he'd catch me off guard. But what Dave didn't know was that I'd been into boxing for years. His punch barely grazed me, and before he could even realize what had happened, I had him on the ground, knocked out cold. It wasn't even a real fight, just a sad, desperate attempt from a man who couldn't face the consequences of his own choices. I didn't feel any satisfaction from it, just pity. The divorce went through successfully. I got full custody of my daughter. We divided the property, and Linda got what she deserved. Now I was free from the lies, the betrayal, and the toxic mess that my life had become. A few weeks later, Tommy invited me to his birthday party. It was a small gathering with good people. And there I met someone, a wonderful woman who, for the first time in a long while, made me feel like life could be good again. We clicked instantly, and as I stood there talking and laughing with her, I realized that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. So that's how it all ended. If you like the story, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. Life has its ups and downs, but in the end, we all find our way. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. Good luck, everyone, and I'll see you soon.